So there's a lot of scary stories on the internet. There are a lot of people that do scary stories and tell scary stories on YouTube. And I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Mr. Nightmare, one of the most popular storytellers on YouTube for real life account stuff and, videos and all that type of stuff. And if you're a fan of Mr. Nightmare, you know that he tells a lot of different types of stories. Stories that span from first time buying a home, first time moving in, to finding weird rooms in your house that you didn't know existed, to food delivery. And there's a specific food delivery story that comes to mind every time that I think about Mr. Nightmare. It actually comes to into my mind quite frequently, to the point of I still get disturbed thinking about it. And that's a sign of a very, very good story, and also a very creepy moment in someone's life. On October 25th, 2018, Mr. Nightmare uploaded a video called 3 Disturbing Real Food Delivery Horror Stories. And the specific story that always comes to mind for me, and that is always weirdly on my mind, is story 2 within this video. And if you're wanting to watch it, it's at about the 4-minute and 36-second mark. What sets this story apart, like so many other disturbing stories that have to do with food delivery, is that it's not just like, in the middle of town, like somebody's just delivering in the middle of on a street with several different houses. It's a secluded house to the point where they're having to drive and make a journey to get to this house. And when you have a story set up like that, you're in for a good time.
My friend got off the phone during one night shift we had together and told me I'd be doing a delivery. After the food was prepared, I was handed a brown paper bag and I was off on my way. The address I was given led me to some small dirt driveway off the main road, onto an enclosed property. Picture it as some luxurious private property though. It was some old, unkempt excuse of a property. And the house seemed to be closed off given that there wasn't a single light on in there and how high the grass was. I got out from my car and felt grass rubbing against my shins. That's how tall it was. I went up the 3 stairs to the front door and knocked really loud since there didn't seem to be a doorknob. As I expected, after 30 seconds of waiting, there was no answer. So I got back in my car, and first thing I did was start texting my friend back at the restaurant. But when I looked up back to the house, this time one of the upstairs lights inside of the house was turned on.
My first bit of advice when watching this for like the 5th time is that if a house that you're going up to is out in the middle of nowhere and there's no lights on, there's weeds and the grass just are up to your knees, act like you knocked on the door and leave. Because chances are, if the lights aren't even on, it's not a good situation.
So I went back to the door and knocked once again. Only on the first knock, the door pushed open slightly. Someone had opened the door, but there was nobody standing next to the door.
It's also an incredibly good idea that just because the door creaked open, I would back up from that door. Because if that door wasn't open before and all of a sudden that light's on and somebody's coming and they want you to come in like that, it's real sketchy. Don't go in that door.
I pushed the door open a little more and called out hello. My voice echoed through the empty house. I was waiting to hear footsteps come to the door. They never did. Obviously, someone had to have opened the door, so if they weren't going to come to the door, I had to assume they wanted me to come in. I stepped into the house as my shoes made the wood floor creak. I called out one more time, and this time someone replied back. I heard the words aquí arriba. Now, I'm not fluent in Spanish by any means, but I knew that aquí meant here, and I knew arriba meant above, so I put 2 and 2 together and figured they said up here. There was a stairway in the middle of the hallway, so I walked over to it and stopped at the bottom step. I looked up the stairs, and all I saw at the top was an arm reached out over the ledge, doing a little stiff come here motion.
And surprisingly, with what's been building up here, this is where the story takes a turn from just like, this is kind of weird, to very creepy and messed up. So buckle up.
I used what little Spanish skills I'd gained from middle school and said something like Tango tu comida as I walked up the stairs. As I got about halfway up the stairs, the arm wasn't there anymore. I got to the top looking for whoever was just standing by the ledge over the stairs. Then I noticed through the tiniest amount of light that the person was now inside a bedroom with the lights off. But I didn't see the actual person. Once again, all I saw was the person's arm doing that same come here motion. It's as if anything above the person's elbow was faded to black in that room. It was such an eerie sight. I knew for certain I wasn't going in that room though. So I said firmly with confidence, "Buddy, I'm not going in there. You come out here with money or I leave." Suddenly, the arm pulled away into the darkness of the room ahead of me, and after a few seconds of standing there in silence, I was hit by a flying object.
Take a wild guess. Just take a pause. Pause right here. Take a wild guess. You can write it in the comments what you think it is. What hit this delivery driver? If you guess it, you win. I don't know what you win, but you win something.
It happened so fast that it took me a few moments to realize I'd just been hit with a stiff, severed arm. It wasn't some plastic Halloween toy, it was a real arm. I ran down the stairs with the food still in my hand and got back to my car.
Kudos to this delivery driver. He kept the food. So at least somebody could eat it. That's a good takeaway, from the situation. But did you guess that it was an arm? Because that's crazy. And he even said, because my first thought is, it's probably a fake arm. But in this story, he's very specific and like, that's not just some toy arm. It was a real, had some weight to it or something. And he could see that it was a real arm. And also, as soon as that arm would have hit me, I would have not even touched the steps going down. I would have just leapt. I would have I don't know, pole vaulted myself. I don't know what you'd call that. I would just shoot down the stairs, not even touch the stairs. I would have been on second floor, first floor within half a second. So, but he saved the food. That's a good thing.
I didn't even call my friend or my boss. I drove straight to the nearest neighboring house and rang that person's doorbell. When they answered, I told them about what their neighbor had just done to me, and the woman had the most puzzled look on her face. She said nobody's lived in that house for a year. I felt my stomach drop when those words hit me. She said she would call the police after we talked about it for a good 5 minutes. Then I went on my way back to the restaurant with the food. I explained the best I could to my boss, and he let it go. I sometimes wonder how things would have played out if I went into that room, and who or what I would have found.
Oh, and the fact that he went to the neighbor's house, I wouldn't trust the neighborhood, the wherever that place is. I'd be like, who knows what's going on out here? Maybe it's like some weird thing that these people do out here. What did I stumble into? The first thing I would have done, because this is the end of the story now, is I would have called the police. I wouldn't have called my boss. I wouldn't have called my friends. I wouldn't have gone to the neighbor. I would have booked it down those stairs so fast out that front door. I would have called the police. And then I would also quit my job because too much. Let's take a second to think what could have actually happened to this kid, this delivery driver. Because if he would have kept advancing into that room, only bad stuff was going to happen. For this person to already have a severed limb in their hands and they're just holding it and waving it around like a psychopath. They're just like, hey, come in. And you're just like, okay. I'll come in the front door and I'll go up the stairs. Oh, you're in the bedroom at the end of a hallway with no lights on? This is where I draw my line. I'm not going in that room. What could have happened to him is I think that person would have been feasting on two things that night: delivery food and delivery driver. Hopefully not. But sadly, that's what could have happened. So take this as a word of warning. Be very careful. Don't go into unlit, dark houses that are just warning you from the very beginning that something disturbing is going on.